the University of Haripur.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Open and Distance Learning Program, the University of Haripur. I am your instructor, Dr. Sumaira. Let's begin with our very first topic, which is ideology and ideology of Pakistan. The term ideology is a combination of two words, idea and logi. Idea means an idea, an emerging idea, an old idea, or a new idea. And logi means study. So we have a key aspects of ideology. The first is worldwide. Worldwide is a comprehensive and cohesive framework to understand economy, political structure, cultures worldwide. It helps to interpret and it helps to get realized about the events happening around the world, socio-political structure and relationship. The second key aspect of ideology is normative belief. Normative beliefs form the ethical and moral foundation within a particular society. And these are very instrumental in deciding policies and in decision-making process, and these are very judgmental to see how the things should be and what is wrong and what is right. Next is political orientation. Political orientation is refers to those ideas which are very helpful to understand masses' behavior towards political setup. As we know that there are different types of political setup. There is presidential form of government, parliamentary government, a mix of both. And political orientation, these are the ideas which are very helpful to understand government setup, government structure, and its governance. And next we have economic principle. Economic principles determine distribution of wealth, resource allocation, and collection of tax, distribution of or imposition of tax, and market prices. And then social values. Social values are a set of values which are very helpful, and these ideas are very helpful to understand the values within a particular society. After the key aspect of ideology, we have some common types of ideologies. The first is liberalism. Liberalism advocates lesser government or lesser states interference into the market prices, into the citizen rightship, and liberalism advocates more powers of the citizens living in a particular country. The next type of ideology is conservatism. Conservatism refers to static or unchangeable set patterns of culture. And the next is socialism. Socialism believes about equal rights and equal opportunities for all the citizens. Capitalism believes less interference in a public matter. And feminism and nationalism and environmentalism are another common types of ideologies. Ideological entrenchment. Ideological entrenchment within a societal structure. We will discuss when, where, and in which circumstances a new ideology evolves. And the ideology always evolves among the dissatisfied or deprived section or segment of society or class. It doesn't mean that a liberal society or an independent society or the society which is not being deprived having no ideology. But I am talking about the new ideology. Evolution of a new ideology, emergence of new ideology. The new ideology emerges among the dissatisfied, deprived section and segment of class of a society. And it evolves under a selfless leader devoted leader, under the leadership of such leadership, the ideology of a particular country or a particular society originates. Evolutionary process of ideology is a gradual process. It's not a speedy process, or it doesn't take place overnight. It's an evolutionary process. It takes decades to many years to centuries. So after having completed evolutionary process, the ideology takes its new shape and entered into the phase of revolutionary process. So we will discuss all these revolutionary process in context of Pakistan's ideology. So it's very important to understand firstly the term ideology is evolutionary process, its different phases, and finally its final stage when it reaches to the destination of a revolution to bring a major socio-political change and development. So revolutionary process, it may be the last phase of an ideological journey. So revolutionary process brings a change. It brings independence if the society of that country, the people of that country were struggling for getting independence or for attainment of their basic rights or for their socio-political change, and as a challenge of prevailing setup. So the ideology of Pakistan, which is our actual topic, after a brief discussion about the term ideology and its evolution and revolution and its different phases, you will be able to understand the ideological evolution and its implementation and practical execution of ideology of Pakistan. So we will also discuss very important and some prominent events, historical events, which led to the creation and evolution of a new ideology among the Muslim masses. So before 1857, there were no concept of a separate nation among the Muslim masses. As I have discussed about the suppression and oppression of Hindus and the British rule, the Muslims were compelled to think somehow differently. So in historical perspective, there were some events. The most important event were the Hindi-Urdu controversy. So ideology of Pakistan took its shape, and it was the first phase, and it was the evolutionary process. At this stage, we can't say that it was, and it will become the ideology of Pakistan. But a particular ideology emerged during 1860s, 1868, after the controversy of Hindi-Urdu controversy, and the conflict erupted between Muslims and Hindus, in which many Muslims and Hindus killed, and that massacre also led towards a new thinking and transformation of thought among the Muslim society. I want to discuss about language. Language is just not the medium of instruction and medium of communication. It represents and it reflects history, culture of a particular society. So when Hindi-Urdu conflict erupted at the place of Banaras in 1868, the Muslims began thinking that our culture, our religious values are no longer safe, and we will not be able to preserve our history, our culture, and our language, and even our religion within united India. So all these factors contributed to the evolution of a new ideology, and it was the evolutionary process, and it was the beginning and the first phase of ideology. So Muslim nationalism also a factor, major factor, which contributed to the formation of ideology of Pakistan. There were there were many reformists, there were many educationists and philanthropists who brought a revolution, who brought change and challenged the set pattern among the Muslim society. As we know that after 1857, the Muslims lost their rule, their glory. But now, Sir Sayyid Khan was the first reformist who tried to challenge and tried to change the mindset of the Muslims. He played a role of mediator between the Muslims and the British. He also served as a servant under the British rule and took part in 1857 war. During 1868, he visited Oxford and saw the system of education and got inspired by that system of education. He wanted to implement such system of education in India for the Muslims of the subcontinent. So he decided to found Mohammedan Anglo education, and later stages it gained the status of college, and after his death in 1920 it became Aligarh University. Here it is very important to discuss about the initial ideology or the initial perception of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan. Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan was of the view that the Hindus and Muslims are one nation before the conflict of Hindi-Urdu controversy. He stated that Hindus and the Muslims are like two eyes on the same face. But this event transformed his initial thought, and he said that there are two nations living on the same soil. So this is how the two-nation theory developed. This is how the two-nation theory evolved, and that's why Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan is known as the founder of two-nation theory. So an evolutionary process of a new idea had been started after this event and after the transformation of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan's initial thoughts and perception about the Hindus and the Muslims. So Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan performed his duties, and Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan founded educational institutions. He published many pamphlets. He tried to remove misunderstanding between the Hindus and the Muslims. He wrote many letters to British Empire that the 1857 war was fought between the whole subcontinent and the British government, and the Muslims only might not be responsible for the War of Independence and the after effects of the War of Independence. There were Hindus, there were Sikhs who equally took part in the War of Independence, but the British government, the British rulers, deliberately targeting the Muslims society. On the other hand, being a part of the Muslim society, and he belonged to a very noble family, he has influence over his societal circle. He tried to convince the Muslims to get and to attain the prevailing scientific knowledge or the scientific education brought by the British government, to make themselves able to compete within the subcontinent as the Hindus were doing. And the Hindus, on the other hand, accepted their new ruler because it was just a change of ruler for the Hindus. Before 1857, the Muslims were their ruler, and after 1507, the British became their ruler, and they welcomed their system of education because after getting the new system of education, which was scientific or which were in English language, they were able to grab post in army, they were able to be a part of civil servants, and they were enjoying a prestigious life. On the other hand, the Muslim refused to accept the modern system of education. But they were now confined to work to work as laborers in Hindus' farms, and either they were the peasants, and the literacy rate was also very low. So the Sir Syed Khan tried to convince to adopt and accept the prevailing modern system of education brought by the British government. So it was an evolutionary process, and Sir Syed Khan emerged as the first leader to present a new idea, and which was known as the two-nation theory, and it was the first phase of ideology. The ideology was continuing its journey. Later, Allama Muhammad Iqbal adopted the perception of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and he also advocated the differences between Hindus and the Muslims. In his famous address, Allama Muhammad Iqbal advocated that the Muslim contiguous provinces or the units in which the Muslims are living in majority should be grouped together to form a separate and sovereign state for the Muslims of the subcontinent, either within the setup of the British rule or after the withdrawal of the British rule. And he considered that this is the ultimate solution of the prevailing constitutional and political problems of the subcontinent. And it was the second phase of evolutionary process, or you can say the idea of Pakistan. However, the idea of Pakistan was not emerged. It was the ideological journey which was adopted by Allama Iqbal, and he added up further in two-nation theories concept. He also gave separation of boundaries and a separate state. So after the death of Allama Muhammad Iqbal in late 1930s, Jinnah emerged as the revolutionary leader. He adopted the theory, the concept, and he perceived the concept of two-nation theory of his earlier leader, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, his two-nation theory, and the geographical separation of Allama Muhammad Iqbal. Although it is very important to discuss the initial perception of Jinnah. Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah initially, like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, he believed that the Muslims and Hindus are one nation, and he was known as the ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity by signing Lucknow Pact 1916. But after some historical events, which we will discuss in our later lectures, you will come to know that these events, as we have discussed one event during Sir Syed Ahmad Khan rule, which was Hindi-Urdu controversy, compelled to change his early ideology and transformed his thought. There were so many other events from 1906 till 1940, which also compelled Jinnah to transform his thoughts, to change his early ideologies. So Jinnah also made his mind that a separate state would be the final destination and would be the ultimate constitutional and political problems of the subcontinent. So along with the discussion of these all were the devoted and selfless leaders. As I talked earlier, that an ideology needs selfless and devoted leaders. An ideology emerges among the dissatisfied and deprived segment of society under the leadership of a selfless and devoted leaders. So all these three leaders, although there were other prominent leaders, but although these three leaders led the Muslim movement in different phases and adopted the ideology of Pakistan. And ideology of Pakistan, or this particular ideology, took its final shape during 1940, when the Muslim passed the famous Lahore Resolution at the place of Minto Park, which is now known as Minar-e-Pakistan, was built as a historical monument. So it was the last phase of ideological journey. The journey started with the conflict of Hindus and the Muslims about the language, official language for Hindi or instead of Urdu. And there were so many other historical events. Finally, the ideology became the ideology of Pakistan during 1940, when the Muslims of the subcontinent gathered at the place of Minto Park, which is and the historical monument Minar-e-Pakistan was built after 1947 during 1960s during Ayub period. So during 1940, the ideology took its final shape and entered into the third phase, which is known as a revolutionary phase. And 1940 till 1947, these 7-year struggle reflected the revolution among the Muslim masses, because when the Muslims gathered during passing out Lahore Resolution, they trusted and they promised for having a separate state, and the struggle dimension was entirely changed. The dimension changed from struggling for attainment of constitutional and political rights, which were continuing since last 4 to 5 decades. Now the Muslims adopted the road of separatism. Now the Muslim believed that a separate state would be the final destiny to preserve their culture, social and political heritage, values, customs, and the system of Islam. So here we have discussed about the term ideology, about type of ideology, and major prominent leaders who took part and played a vital role in reforming society and in bringing the journey, final journey of the ideology of Pakistan. It was all about today's lecture. Thank you so very much.